Why would life without God be untenable, if not absurd? What is the meaning and the purpose of life? And why do we regard humans and human life as having value? And moral values, where do they come from? Can life have meaning without the existence of God? Or do we have to create our own meaning? Are there good reasons to believe that a life without God is not tenable, really absurd? Welcome to my YouTube channel Talk Talk and the series A Time to Think. I'm Tertius, a reconstructive plastic surgeon with a zeal for God, a zeal for truth, and why it is rational to believe in God. Man is the only creature that asks why questions. Why questions about his existence? If we are no more than the product of nature, the result of matter, time, and chance, and there is no reason for our existence, the answer to these why questions might just be dark and terrible. This is a quote from Lauren Isley, a philosopher and natural science writer. If God is left out of the equation, the only purpose is that we will end up with the universe in a purposeless death. Modern man thought that when he got rid of God, he freed himself. But in killing God, he only orphaned himself. Without God, man and the universe are doomed to nothing more than a dark, cold, purposeless death. Science tells us that the universe is running out of energy. And eventually, everything, the entire universe, the entire human race, will end up in death. In Sartre, the French philosopher's words, the universe is marching irretrievably to its grave. There is no hope, there's no escape. If each individual will pass out of existence when he dies, what ultimate meaning could there be? Does it matter that he lived at all? Consider the average person that lived 1,000 years ago. The vast majority of these people are completely forgotten by everyone. What they did as individuals, good or bad, makes no difference to anyone today. Their actions while they were alive bore no significance within years after their deaths. And so will our lives and actions have no significance within years after our deaths once we are forgotten as individuals. If there is only death, there cannot be ultimate meaning. Everything will be forgotten as if it never existed. Our final destination would be unrelated to our behavior. So can we just live as we please? But that will mean a world with even more chaos than the world we are living in. Without God, life becomes ultimately absurd, with no ultimate meaning, no ultimate value, and no ultimate purpose. Just today's pleasures for today. Each individual will die, the human race will stop to exist, and the universe will die into a cold, dead, lifeless, lightless, chaotic conglomeration of stars swallowed up by black holes, and no one will remember anything. That's the prospect and the worldview if there's no God. This is then the horror of modern man in reality, with its materialistic worldview. Because he ends in nothing, he is ultimately nothing, and doomed to purposelessness in a forgotten vacuum of nothing. Life might be significant relative to the now, but ultimately there is no significance to anybody's life. What is the ultimate difference between the life of Hitler and Mother Teresa if they both and their actions will be forgotten in 1,000 years from now? If there's no God, there is no ultimate meaning. People live as if their lives have meaning, but it's inconsistent with their worldview. It's a self-delusion to create one's own meaning. Even so does the concept of morality lose its meaning without God. If there's no God, there can't be objective morality. no objective right or wrongs. Without God, which is the perfect standard outside of us, who can say whose values are right and whose are wrong? Hitler's or Mother Teresa's? Morality then becomes an expression of individual taste, of personal subjective feelings and relative judgments, with the implication that it means it is impossible to judge war, suppression, crime, evil, love, any of these as good or bad. It becomes only the bare, valueless facts of existence, of personal opinion. If this is the only and final outcome of existence, what can the goal and purpose of life be? All for nothing. We are here to know purpose, and humans seek purpose all the time. We are created to seek purpose. If not, we are no better than a dog or an insect. Without God, there can only be despair if we are honest with ourselves. For the atheist Friedrich Nietzsche, the implication is that atheism equals nihilism. In other words, the belief that nothing is real, that it is impossible to know anything, that all values are based on nothing, especially moral values, believing that life is inherently and utterly meaningless. Without God, there is no goal or purpose for the universe, and man is merely a biological electrochemical machine controlled by altering genetic codes, and cannot have a free will and neither have rational thoughts. So what is the solution? Friedrich Nietzsche's solution holds two possibilities. Either face the absurdity of life or live valiantly with courage and determination. Atheist Bertrand Russell, who also thought about this deeply, said, build your life on unyielding despair. Albert Camus, another philosopher, said, the solution is to come to terms with the absurdity of life and then learn to live in love with one another. Without God, you are in a desperate position and have to try and make the best of reality. But it is impossible to live consistently in despair and with incessant attempts to deal with the situation. Francis Schaeffer illustrates this dilemma with his concept of the two-story universe model, a two-story division of knowledge, it is called. The lower level is the finite world without God, in other words, where the materialist would be. A life without ultimate meaning or purpose. The upper level, or the second story, is life with meaning, purpose, and value because of a belief in God that created the universe and us with purpose. It is impossible to live happily and consistently without God on the lower level, where you know that there's no ultimate purpose in life. Without God, you can either be consistent in your beliefs and be unhappy being stuck on the lower level, or inconsistent in what you believe and jump up to the second level and be happy by trying to find meaning and value on the second level. Modern man, the atheist really, is living in this two-story universe. He lives in the lower level because he believes there is no God, but he cannot live there consistently and be happy with no purpose in life. He makes leaps of faith into the upper level to affirm that life has meaning, value, and purpose, but he's got no right to do that. He's inconsistent with his beliefs if he does that. There are three areas that show that life is absurd without God, and that you cannot be consistent and happy. Consistent with your worldview that there's no God and be happy. To be true to yourself, to be true to truth, and be consistent with your materialistic worldview, one cannot be but unhappy. To be happy, you have to be inconsistent with your beliefs and jump to the second level. Consider meaning. Without God, life has got no ultimate meaning because everything is ultimately on its way to death, and all will be forgotten as if it never existed. But people continue to live as if life has meaning. According to Sartre, one has to create meaning by freely choose to follow certain actions. This, however, is utterly inconsistent with the materialistic worldview. If life is meaningless because there is no ultimate meaning, then to create meaning is also meaningless, and it will also end up in death and be forgotten. Man is trapped on this lower level of no God, no meaning. To create meaning represents a leap of faith into the second level or the upper level. Sartre has no basis for this leap of faith. Without God, there cannot be objective meaning. This is only a self-delusion because each person can't give the universe its own meaning. The universe without God is ultimately meaningless, irrespective of how individuals sees it. So one has to pretend with creating meaning. Ethical values and human value. This represents the most blatant inconsistencies in the materialistic worldview. Atheist Bertrand Russell confessed, "I do not know where ethical values come from." Dostoevsky wrote, "All things are permitted," that is in a materialistic world. But man cannot live this way. Everything in him cries out to what is wrong, but he does not know why. Sartre admitted that the Holocaust was wrong and could not live consistent with his denial of absolute ethical values. Let's consider feminism. If God does not exist, then women have no more value than a female goat. In nature, male is dominant, but nobody can live with such a dehumanizing view. Francis Crick of the Watson Crick DNA discoveries concludes that man is no better than a laboratory specimen. If so, why was the Holocaust wrong? We can only protest consistently if we believe in God. No God and humans have no value. One is inconsistent if you say humans have value and you hold on to a materialistic worldview. This is in sharp contrast to the God that created humans in his own image and ascribed immense value to humans. Thirdly, purpose. You have to create a purpose. This is a self-delusion without God. Ernst Bloch, German Marxist philosopher, wrote, "The only way modern man lives in the face of death is by subconsciously borrowing the belief of immortality." So note he's jumped from the first level to the second level. So he has to borrow the belief of immortality that his forefathers held to, even though he himself has lost and has no basis for believing it, since he does not believe in God. He believes that life ends in nothing. It is hardly sufficient to keep the head high and work as if there is no end. He makes this leap of faith to live as if immortal, but it is inconsistent to his belief system. The dilemma of postmodern man that denies God's existence results in the absurdity of purpose, meaning, and objective moral values. Without God, life is ultimately without meaning and purpose. And if you are consistent in believing and living this, so consistent in believing and living this, you will be profoundly unhappy. To live happily demands a lie. In other words, a jump to the second level. Man desperately tried to escape this dilemma, and L.D. Roux, an American philosopher, offered the noble lie option. We deceive ourselves means by some noble lie, thinking that we can exist in this universe that has meaning. Our quest for personal wholeness and self-fulfillment becomes only relative to the individual. In order to live, modern man must live in self-deception. But once you see this lie, it does not work anymore, like a placebo, and atheism fails. Biblical Christianity offers meaning, value, and purpose. The existence of God makes sense of morality, the moral force behind the moral law, of shame and guilt, of equal rights, and of human value. The text for this talk is on my blog, and the link to my blog is in the description below this video. If you found what was argued in this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. This will be of a huge help to spread the message of why it is rational to believe in God.